I want to welcome you again to our presentation today. We're really excited to have you on board. Matt's a first-time speaker with us, but I've gotten to know him a little bit over the past few weeks and looked at some of the things that he's written and spoken on, and we're very excited to have him on board on a really important and timely topic. Before we turn it over to Matt, a couple of housekeeping items. Um, If you don't see the GoToWebinar control panel, just look for the orange arrow that allows you to expand or hide the panel at any time. If you want to select or change your audio options, you can click on the audio tab and then select either computer audio or phone call from there. If you choose phone call, it'll give you a dial-in number and an access code. And finally, if you have any questions for Matt during the presentation, go ahead and submit those from the questions tab. We're going to wait on answering the questions until the end because Matt's got a lot of information to get through. So we want to make sure that he gets through as much of that as possible, but we will be holding those questions for the end here. Also wanted to mention our hashtag expert webinar, which you see on the bottom left of this slide here. So if you're on Twitter and would like to follow along with us or engage with us about anything during Matt's webinar or afterwards, go ahead and use that hashtag expert webinar, and we'll be happy to interact with you and follow along with you there as well. We do offer one CP for today's webinar, and that's based on active participation during the live webinar. Active participation means three things: attending the live webinar for no less than 50 minutes, responding to all of the polling questions during today's webinar, and then finally submitting the post-webinar survey within 24 hours after the webinar has ended. That post-webinar survey, it's a window that pops up after the webinar is closed out. If you don't see it, no worries, we'll send you a link to that survey by email afterwards as well. We will confirm CP eligibility over the next couple of business days. And if you haven't already done so, please add webinar@accountantsworld.com to your trusted email list to make sure that emails from us actually get through to you. Before we get started with the presentation, I wanted to offer something else as well for today's attendees. We at Accountants World have created a new guide that we're calling How to Build a Highly Profitable Client Accounting Services Practice in 90 Days. So there was a survey in accounting today at the beginning of this year that asked about what services firms across the country are most planning to invest in and grow over the course of 2019 and 2020. The number one answer was client accounting services. So when we think about what client accounting services means and how to start offering it, we felt like there was a lot of confusion out there among firms, especially small to medium-sized firms, about how to get started with that and how to really make it profitable. And the good news is that you can actually begin to build a profitable CAS practice within the first 90 days and really start to see some growth in it over the course of the following 90 days. So we put this guide together to show you step by step exactly how to do that, what factors to look for, and how to really get started with building a sustainable CAS practice. So if you're interested in getting a free copy of the guide delivered to your email inbox, I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll question, which is simply, would you like us to email you a copy of the free ebook, How to Build a Highly Profitable Client Accounting Services Practice in 90 Days? So you can select yes, you can select no, just select something, because this is the first poll question that is required in order to earn CPE credit today. So we'll take about 10 seconds here for people to get in their votes. Just to reiterate, this is the first of our poll questions today, and voting in all of the poll questions is required in order to earn CPE credit. All right, so we're at almost 90% of folks having voted. We'll take about 5 or 6 more seconds here. Going once, going twice. All right, great. Thank you for voting in that, and we hope you enjoy the information in your CAS guide if you were among the many folks who selected to receive that. I'm going to turn it over to Matt here in just a minute. A quick bio of Matt. He's a partner and the leader of Withum's cyber and information security practice. a top-tier expert in providing due diligence against the biggest threats that organizations face today, threats that we're all aware of, but I think in many cases we feel sort of daunted and helpless in the face of these threats. And Matt is an expert in not only assessing the threats, but communicating what we can actually do about them. And Matt was previously a special agent with the United States Secret Service, so he brings a lot of background and expertise from a security background. So at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Matt Ferrante. And Matt, you may be still muted right now.
Yep, passing it over to my monitor. Okay, great. Thank you for allowing me to present today. And thanks for putting the photo of me up. I think somehow we're going to be talking a lot about data loss prevention, but in terms of my hair, I think I gained some of the hair back on my head, but we'll see, if that still occurs in the coming years as the cyber threat landscape increases and the amount of threats and impacts occur as well. So quick disclaimer, many of the items we discussed today relate to potentially active incidents involving criminal, civil, regulatory matters and fact-finding matters. So we need to include a quick disclaimer. Further, I'm not a lawyer, neither is anyone at Witham Cyber. We do not provide legal advice. We leave that to the lawyers. The information provided is based on my expertise in the field and as a former federal agent and cybersecurity expert. In case anyone is unfamiliar about Witham, we're listed as one of the top 20 accounting firms. We provide advisory services, tax and audit services. Witham Cyber falls under the advisory services. We have a lot of slides to go through, so in the interest of time, I will quickly go through or possibly skip some in order to ensure that we complete the entire presentation and hit core topics. Okay, so I'm a Star Wars fan, so there will be kind of a Star Wars theme to this to make it a little bit interesting. We're going to talk about Witham Cyber and my background. We're going to provide some quick stats and facts that are going on in the cybersecurity industry. Historical evidence of escalation of cyber threats. It's important to understand where we were and where we are today. Cyber threats are nothing new, but they are definitely increasing in ferocity. And we're also going to understand the threat landscape and what it means to you. We're going to enter the mindset of a threat actor. I've apprehended over 65 plus cyber criminals globally. I've worked with boots on the ground in places in high-risk environments such as Moscow. I've worked in mainland China. I've worked all over Asia. I've worked in emerging markets. These are boots on the ground, not just remotely. Why are you a target? What does it mean to you? A lot of people have the misconception that this is just governments being targeted or major enterprises. That's not true. We're going to find out later bits and bytes matter, and they can be equated to monetary gain for the cyber criminals. We're going to go over the anatomy of an attack on an organization. Excerpts that we receive from incident response and security assessments. IoT devices, one of the big hot topics, Internet of Things. Everyone wants to connect everything to the internet. US, China, and Russia cyber wars, next generation Death Stars. What type of impacts can we expect from cyber attacks, and whether or not they're actually going on today. And quick indicators of an organization's cybersecurity posture, which is important. So for those of you who are non-technical, don't worry. I'm going to give something to you as well. There's a way that I can help convert you to a quick cybersecurity expert. We can go in and you can get a quick rundown of what your potential cybersecurity posture is in your organization. We're going to talk about security control frameworks and security control strategies. Do you actually have a security control framework or a strategy that you've adopted? And then we're going to go over effective cybersecurity and closing remarks. Okay, we all love the bits and bytes, so let's buckle up and enjoy the ride. There's a little bit about my background, my summary accolades. I've always been a bits and bytes type of person. I have a degree in applied science and technology, a degree in criminal justice. I've been trained by the U.S. Secret Service. not just in cybersecurity, but U.S. critical infrastructure and how that is directly aligned to the cybersecurity. I've seen environments like our electric grids, power grids, and some of it is extremely scary. And we'll also talk about the private sector and SMEs as well. But this is a summary of my background, and we also have exciting people that work with us as well, such as the person who's with me today, Andrea Valencia. She's a senior consultant, forensic expert, and data loss prevention specialist. So as you know, once you connect to the internet, those threats become global. So these are the different areas that we worked in over 71 plus countries. Immediately when you get connected to the internet, it's very quickly and very rapid that even though your business may be domestic, the cyber threats are definitely global. Global organized crime, for example, may be decentralized, but they are highly committed, organized, and very effective at committing cyber crimes. This is a brief history of cyber war. No need to go through all of these. You have the slide decks. However, it is important that the listeners understand cyber attacks are nothing new. Again, they're increasing in ferocity. They're more prevalent. Attackers are much bolder, and the impacts are becoming much more intense on organizations. Cybercrime economy and profits, 1.5 trillion. So unfortunately, cybercrime pays. Cybercrime and damages, it's going to be 6 trillion by 2021. Ransomware attacks, they occur every 14 seconds. Every 11 seconds, they'll occur by 2021. If you're infiltrated by a ransomware attack, you got big, usually that means big problems. It's not just the data loss. It's about the integrity, the availability of the system. And in addition to that, usually when you get hit by a ransomware attack, that's usually after that data may have been exfiltrated and likely been exfiltrated or exposed at that point anyway. It's not just about paying the ransom, it's about data loss. Top countries targeted: United States, estimated records exposed by 2023, about 146 billion. What is the cost of a dark web cybercrime toolkit? $1. There is some good news, at least for me in the market that I'm in. The cybercrime security market will be 300 billion by 2024. So it is definitely growing. Important point to make out here is that for the cyber criminals, it's very, very lucrative on their side. They're very, very good at brokering data, and it's not just about credit card data. It's about social security numbers, PII data, or personally identifiable information. That's critical, and that they know how to monetize that information. So cyber attacks, it's important to know that cyber attacks are not always financially motivated. There's a lot of different reasons why cyber attacks occur. Industrial espionage is one of them. I can give an example for where industrial espionage is taking place. It used to be classified, but for example, Air France, they used to have all of the first class cabins wired with listening devices to capture C-class executives' conversations as they was doing overseas trips. And there's even an admission by some of the stakeholders within the government that there's nothing wrong with that, and even to assist and help their industry. So 3 things, again: confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system. Also, attacks are done to obfuscate someone's trails. So we'll talk a little bit about proxying. Proxying means, and the obfuscation means that they may infiltrate one system in order to hop into multiple other systems in order to obfuscate one's identity and to clean up their trails. Why is there a high risk of cyber intrusion? Why do these attacks occur? Usually big indicators: complacency, weak security, no strategy. They lack a CISO or Chief Information Security Officer. If you don't have a CISO or a virtual Chief Information Security Officer, consider getting one. There needs to be a checks and balance within the environment. There's limited IT security expertise. Just security in terms of IT is kind of a little bit foreign because IT, and I grew up in an IT environment before going to the government. I worked in an IT environment, and they've been handled a lot. It started with workstations and servers. Then they got involved in the telephone networks. Then they got involved in, credit card data. They're handling too much. Security needs to be handled by security expertise. And again, the checks and balance in the environment is critical. Lack of accountability or no accountability, very, very important. A lot of people don't like that type of language, accountability, but there has to be an accountable exec, in quotes, an accountable exec, someone who's going to be accountable for the security of the environment. If there is no accountability, I can tell you that accountability is coming. So people are trying to put forth a Corporate Executive Accountability Act. We worked on such cases such as the Target data breach, in which the CEO was let go in those type of cases. The industry in terms of protecting confidential data is definitely getting out of hand. This is why we see the emergence of GDPR and CCPA and other type of regulatories, as well as South America. Each country's coming out with their data protection regulations, but they want to see a higher level of accountability. I can tell you when PCI compliance, payment card industry compliance, initially came about, while I was in the government initially wanted to take over all of that type of framework. And the credit card industry came running and said, no, we'll police our own framework, give us a chance to get that situated. But the government was interested in doing that. If the problems don't cease, this is where the regulatory and the sanctions come about. But they're even talking about criminal penalties as well. Remember, data spills over borders. You might have data, even if you do work domestically, you may have data that impacts somebody overseas. So their laws may be applicable. But let's talk about the money right now. Many people and businesses alike are ill-informed that data equals money. It has value. Data brokers make a living out of quietly buying and selling your private data. Data brokers in the United States include places like Experian, CoreLogic, DataLogix, Intellius, Record Future, Axiom. Axiom, for example, claims to have files on 10% of the world's population with about 1,500 pieces of information per consumer, and that's quoted on Senate.gov. So businesses, it's very simple. You earn money and collect valuable data. I already talked about how data can be monetized and how people make a living out of it. Your data translates to money. Organized will steal your data and sell it, guaranteed. Yes, even directly to your competitors. We dealt with Russian organized crime, literally where they wanted to first extort the company to buy their data back. They didn't go for it, and then they literally went to their competitors to try and sell the data to their competitors, and they're very bold about it. And there's, in terms of them getting caught, they're less and less frightened about getting caught because it's the problem is so big, law enforcement is overwhelmed, and there's little risk of them getting caught. Bottom line is, yes, you are a target. So let's talk about the breakdown, a breakdown in the cybercrime economy and profit. Illicit online markets, 860 billion. Theft of intellectual property and trade secrets, 500 billion. It's important to understand that sometimes impacts on data thefts are sudden. Those are the ones we know about. Sometimes a company is bled out over a period of time. I literally had CEOs on the phone on different occasions, literally not environments that we protected, but literally CEO in tears because his company was run to the ground because his trade secrets and intellectual property was stolen over and bled out over a long period of time. Data trading, $160 billion industry in the black market. Cybercrime as a service, yes, they outsourced their services to 1.6 billion. So if I wanted to hack somebody, I didn't know how to do it. You can go on the dark web and you can identify targets, and people will provide hacking as a service. Ransomware, 1 billion. So this is definitely, we would consider this an emerging economy for them. So even though ransomware, you hear about a lot, it's very prevalent. It's only 1 billion at this point, but it's definitely growing. These are different boards. The one with the United States Secret Service is actually a posting I put on for the takedown, where I designed the first computer network wiretap. We took down about 65 plus hackers globally based on that wiretap. Carter Planet is an example of a data brokerage area. A lot of it has moved to the dark web and, for additional sophistication. Albert Gonzalez is the one we see next to the MasterCard. He did over 175 million credit cards. He loved targeting SMEs, small to medium enterprise businesses, because they're easy targets and they're easy ways to piggyback on other environments. And then the other individual script, he ran another board, I believe it was Carter Planet. He's another individual that was involved. And you notice he's holding a weapon. It wasn't just data that was brokered, it was other information that was brokered as well. I talked a little bit before about different motivators, why people do stuff in terms of extortion. What we're seeing today, and this is in multiple cases that we've handled, and I would say we have about 3, where one is extorting the people for the data. We've actually had at least 2 to 3 cases where hackers literally tried to inject, and one was successful. They injected child pornography into an individual's computer in order to extort them and set these individuals up. So it's very important that you understand the risks are high, and even though you may be shown not guilty in the future, the impact and the reputational impact, not just on the individual, but on the firm, would be massive. So cyber defense experts, I can tell you, these are, to the right is the different type of cases that we work. And what's interesting is I've worked these type of cases both in the US Secret Service as well as in the private sector. So I tell people, they're like, well, do you miss the service? Yeah, I love the service, I miss the service, but I'll tell you what, the only difference that I'm not doing now is I'm not kicking down the doors and putting cuffs on people. A lot of times when you deal with the feds, they want everything in a pretty bow handed off to them, and there are instances where a business may want to hand it off to law enforcement, and I'll tell you reasons why, hopefully down the deck, why you may not want to do that, because, well, in short, businesses are in for making a profit. The criminal justice system is there for making arrests and kicking down the doors, and government, unfortunately, is slow. To the bottom, the $4.2 million check is a quick intercept that we did for Russian organized crime for stolen bankers' checks. The type of devices that we're getting are more and more sophisticated. The watch that's being held up in the back of the watch is a USB plug. What that individual was doing is plugging into a system and siphoning out trade secrets into an environment that he came in as and was working on. We're dealing with stuff down at a chip level with all different devices, especially with the onset of IoT devices. That's the level of sophistication that we're dealing with. So it's not just about the hard drives. The amount even on micro SD chips is very, very small, but the massive amount of data that's fit on small chips is astronomical. So internal and external threats. To the left, we have Eastern European organized crime. We have people who hack for social reasons or hacktivism. We have nation state actors. We have Iran. We'll talk a little bit about that. We have internal threats. We have to the right, we have an individual who's wearing the tie. We'll talk about IT threats, IT administrative threats. We'll talk about external threats, how they're trying to get into your environment, whether it's through social engineering or through third parties. The London bus bombing, the boards that I discussed, we actually had both Eastern European crime, US crime, but they were doing they're brokering and also trading data and information with terrorists. So information that we gathered and evidence we gathered was used to prosecute individuals in England that were involved in London bus bombing. So one of the things, if I fail to mention it, that they need to understand, these threats come to your doorstep. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but stuff that we have worked on. We've worked on the criminal side, the civil side, the regulatory side. We've worked on class action suits. So we've worked on all different sides of the fence, including with the insurers on the class action suits, and some of the key words that we hear, negligence, recklessness, intent. So be mindful that if your environment is negligent, it's reckless, that there's a potential for liability. So to the left, they spoke about the guy with the tie a little bit. That was Roger Duronio. This is going back to the Secret Service days. This is an example of an IT administrator who's making about $125,000 a year. Didn't like his year-end bonus of $25,000. Decided to write a what's called a logic bomb, which means that when specific factors occur, the logic bomb would go off and basically cause a catastrophic impact to the environment. But he didn't stop there. What he did is he put puts into the company's against the company's portfolio to basically profit off of the impact that it would cause. Logic bomb went off. He actually made money from the puts, and basically thousands of systems went down. This is not an isolated incident. It's one that's definitely out there. We've definitely seen IT misconduct prevalent. IT administrators have a lot of control. There needs to be an appropriate checks and balances. It's about the sustainability and the availability of the business. Consider, a checks and balance with your environment. The bottom is actually a statement from a pen test or from a global financial corporation. And that's an actual statement made, and he was absolutely right. I mean, this is the type of impacts that can occur. Understand that when a network goes down, it may not come back up again. If I forget to mention, backups, for example, we find that 70 to 75% of the time, and they have external stats for this, do not work. So when you have a ransomware attack, businesses that are down potentially a week, or I've even seen businesses down for a month, it's because their business continuity and their backups have failed, or they've been poisoned over a period of time. This describes the anatomy of an attack on a business. We've seen thousands of different hacks. We've actually did authorized hacks. And it starts normally with the reconnaissance of the environment. That's probably one of the biggest thing is they will go and do research on your environment, who's within your environment. Then it starts with the initial compromise. Next, they're going to do an initial foothold on the environment. They're going to escalate privileges in the environment. So even if they get in on a lower level account, like a user account that doesn't have administrative privileges, they will look to escalate those privileges. Then the impacts start to occur. And again, I mentioned that they can be sudden or they can happen over a period of time. What are those impacts? Data exfiltration, the integrity of the system, the availability of the system. It's not just about data loss. And then the attackers are going to look to maintain a presence over a period of time. So even though they have one door open or one window open, they're going to look for another nexus into that environment to remain hooks on that environment, or they may also piggyback off of different environments as well. Again, we work thousands of different hacks supporting it on incident response. What we have noticed that these incidents are often preventable, and there's mixed reasons why they occur, including people being asleep behind the controls, lack of understanding of cyber threats, negligence, recklessness, among other reasons. And I want to also make a point that some people just, focus and preach about cybersecurity. We actually run full IT managed services. So we actually run a full SOC, and we believe in the integration of cybersecurity with IT controls. So we actually manage environments as well. So we practice what we preach. It's not something that says, hey, you should do this, don't click on that. We practice these environments as well day in and day out. It's not just preaching it. Third-party suppliers of services. Everyone uses third-party suppliers, business or most do. Businesses must share confidential information with third-party suppliers, such as law firms. We've seen a huge uptick in law firms being targeted because a law firm contains large repositories of highly confidential information. They also maintain clients' dirty laundry. Financial information and information that is already culled. So meaning with that is that the law firms reduce the noise in the data, and usually they cull the data down where they got a lot of the juicy stuff. So they've been a big target for information, whether it's potential merger and acquisition information. We've seen hackers take advantage of that, or again, sell the information involved to extort, or to cause an impact to other environments in terms of, for the reasons I described before, a ransomware type of attack in order to paralyze the type of businesses. Accounting firms are also high value targets for similar reasons. This is an example of a cyber attack on a law firm. We start off with, have you ever been hit with a ransomware attack before? The victim says, yes, we have been hit with a ransomware attack twice in just 2 months, but our IT person said that everything is fine. It was just an unlucky coincidence. No, when you get hit with a ransomware attack, you should be able to recover from that environment, especially if your backups are good and you have an appropriate business continuity plan. twice in 2 months, that tells me that there's likely there were still hooks in the environment and the environment wasn't properly remediated the first time. We asked them how long they've been down. Did you suffer any data loss? And do you know if any data leaked from your environment? Very important. Did you suffer data loss? Is data leaking? A lot of people don't even know where their confidential data resides, how it's being used and maintained, and whether or not it's leaking from the environment. And that doesn't mean just through firewalls or endpoint gateways. It means USB ports as well. I can tell you probably some of the biggest impacts, and we'll talk about them later, that we've seen is on those little flash drives that either people hand out for free or you can buy for a very cheap price that you can get from a Staples. So they said they've been down for over a week. Backups are no good. We definitely lost a lot of data, and we have no idea if data leaked from the environment. And their IT people have no idea of any, do not have any real cybersecurity expertise. These are examples of law firms being targeted, which translates into data leakage of client information. The Panama Papers occurred allegedly because someone within the firm grew a conscience and decided to leak information. The map to the right shows where the geographic impacts occurred based on the leakage of that data. Is also a good example of how insider threats are among some of the most dangerous. So there's a saying, those closest to us can cause the biggest impacts. I take mixed martial arts and boxing. I'm a fan of boxing, and boxers always say the biggest hits they take are the ones that they never see coming. So doing appropriate cybersecurity assessments, if you know the risks are there, you're much better able to absorb them if they occur, and you will have impacts. So we're going to touch on malware, but we're going to start with our poll question, our first poll question on malware.
Sure thing, Matt. All right, we'll get that started right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Provine. I am a marketing coordinator here with Accountants World. I'll be handling the poll questions today. And our poll question here reads, what year was the first computer virus created? Was it 1969, 1971, 1982, or 1986? And just a reminder, as Div said in his intro, that answering all of the poll questions is required for CPE credit. So if everybody could answer these poll questions. What year was the first computer virus created? I'll let it go just a couple more seconds here. Alrighty. About another 10 seconds here. Going once. Going twice, going 3 times. All right, we will close it and I will share the results here, Matt. Alrighty. What year was the first computer virus created? So 42% of the attendees said 1971 and 33% of the attendees said 1969. So what is the answer there, Matt?
Okay, so I think everyone remembers Scooby-Doo. That was, so basically 1971, it was called the Creeper virus, named for a character on the Scooby-Doo cartoon show, written by Bob Thomas. That's who actually wrote Creeper, not the Scooby-Doo show, of BBN Technologies, and it spread through computers on ARPANET. ARPANET was the forerunner of the internet. The virus was self-replicating and displayed the message, "I'm Creeper, catch me if you can." Okay, so this shows how easy it is to get your hands on malware and weaponize it. It's pretty easy. This is a message board offering a Trojan horse to steal credit card information. These are supplied on different messaging boards. Also, you can obtain these through the dark web. The type of malware that's offered today not only scrapes credit card data, but evades antivirus and steals PII data, or personally identifiable information. The amount of data theft and the availability of these tools have gone up, and the price has gone down. So let's discuss some of the worst computer viruses ever. And again, you can kind of draw a nexus between the historical viruses that have appeared, their impacts, and then we'll also talk about where it's gone and how it's been escalating as well. So the Melissa virus is a macro virus. It was written in a macro language, which is embedded in software applications such as Microsoft Word. Day one, it spread to hundreds of thousands of computers. It cost about 80 million in cost to businesses and damages. The individual who wrote it was David Smith, who created the virus. He only got 20 months in prison, $5,000 fine, and was caught 1 week after the virus spread. The virus was named after a stripper he met in Florida, and the virus spread through social engineering by causing people to be curious enough to open up the attachment. The I Love You virus is a worm virus. It's a standalone program. It doesn't need something like Microsoft Word to run on its own. So that's meaning that it doesn't need a host program to run. It used a VBS, what's called a .VBS extension. So it's hidden by the operating system by default. This hit 45 million computers in just 2 days, caused 10 billion in damages. And basically it was an email with the subject line, I love you, with an attachment that said love letter for you.txt. When you clicked on the attachment, it would go through your computer looking for documents, images, and audio files, then overwrite them with copies of itself. No backups meant you lost all your data. Next, it would send itself through to everyone in your address book. 2 programmers in the Philippines wrote it. They're arrested and released because there weren't any laws at the time in the Philippines yet for what they had done. Next, SQL Slammer literally broke the internet in 2003. Worst virus targeted to target SQL servers, which stores database information. It infected about 75,000 servers in just 10 minutes by sending what it appears to be non-malicious code. The code reprogrammed servers to send out more malicious code. So approximately 75,000 servers started sending additional requests out to hundreds of thousands of other servers. The internet just simply couldn't handle the traffic. The result, millions of servers were affected and the internet went down for a while. Estimated damages, 1.2 billion in damages. The programmer was never caught. And the kick side to this is Microsoft had released a fix for this 6 months prior, but many companies did not bother to install it. Next, we have the Stormworm. Basically the Stormworm was named after that because of it was named obviously after a storm. This spread through email. About 1.5 million machines were infected, and was titled 230 Dead as Storm Batters Europe. It was linked to a website which downloads a virus to the machine. It's designed to be as invisible as possible. It's very difficult to stop because it has the ability to evade antivirus detection. The attackers were never caught, and the networks would create what's called bot networks, which are kind of like zombie computers that are used to attack other computers. The Stuxnet virus is a malicious computer worm which targets SCADA type system or supervisory control and data acquisition systems, which are used for critical infrastructure to control the smart grid, oil pipelines, water treatment, and chemical manufacturing plants. Stuxnet caused substantial damage to Iran's nuclear program by targeting programmable logic controllers, which control centrifuges for separating nuclear materials. It exploited what's called zero-day exploits in the system. Zero-day exploits means that there's not a fix for the system yet, either in the software, the hardware, or firmware, and the parties don't know about how to fix these things. I can tell you that working, and we've done presentations, for example, in Colombia, South America, we were approached by other countries who literally asked us to help protect their electric grid because they were impacted by the Stuxnet virus. So everyone thinks it was just Iran that was hit. There were several other countries that basically got attacked by this type of system, this type of virus. It was very smart. It knew what to attack, when to attack, and what systems were vulnerable. If not, it lay dormant. So it was a very smart type of malware that attacked the environment. The damage, it reportedly ruined almost 1/5 of Iran's nuclear centrifuges, infected over 200,000 computers, and caused 1,000 machines physical damage. Iran, based on that response, has substantially upgraded their offensive cyber weapons capabilities. even to the point of opening a dam in upstate New York and playing around with the switches in those type of systems. Stuxnet is the father of cyberkinetic weapons, which we will explore a little bit later. Okay, Emotet. This is a new thing that's coming out. Law enforcement seems to be really concerned about it. It's basically a highly advanced banking Trojan, but it's morphing and propagating all the time. This is they're saying is found in about 75% of computers today, and it's evading antivirus type systems that traditionally look for signature-based or kind of digital fingerprints in there. This is probably going to be a similar impact once it comes alive. It's running dormant in systems and constantly mutating itself within various systems. Let's talk about inner perimeter attacks. Best way to think about the inner perimeters is like traditional castle type defenses. That's kind of how your network should look. But then within the inner perimeter, what's happening is we are increasing devices like Wi-Fi devices and other mechanisms that increase the attack surface of the environment. So once we start putting in things like Wi-Fi access points, and we'll talk about businesses about how they're deploying those type of stuff, we increase the vulnerabilities to the environment. Or BYOD, we call it, some people call it as bring your own device. We also dub it as bring your own disaster. So just be mindful about the environments that you're bringing in to your systems and which systems it may make vulnerable. This is an example of inner perimeter attacks, how they happen, and an example of how data is moved to unauthorized individuals. A lot of times it's poorly deployed IT environments, lacks controls. Sometimes you have disgruntled employees. To the bottom left, you have an individual who's kind of falling asleep. And then you have an excerpt where people are leaving. If physical sticky notes are not good enough, they're utilizing digital sticky notes. Okay, passwords, we'll talk about that later. There's password management systems that are widely available. Highly recommend them. I have literally thousands of passwords, and literally each one of my passwords are different, and they can be 30 to 40 characters in length. So Wi-Fi connectivity, a lot of places. The next slide I'm going to talk about, we'll talk about how we've infiltrated an environment on an authorized hack. But literally, this is how bad things happen. We have where data comes in through somebody who's sloppy with the network and may go to organized criminals, or organized criminals will pay somebody to go by the environment to steal data. Then it gets Eastern European. From once it goes into the dark web, it's brokered to state-sponsored actors, potentially terrorists or other environments. We've seen social media influencers as well attack environments because they're not happy with something that the company's doing or something that the client's doing as well. The reason why I put parasites there like ticks, that's exactly what they do. They embed themselves into your infrastructure. Once they're in, it's difficult to get a clean environment again. This is an example we do what's called a Witham E3 red team. A red teaming is basically working and acting as a threat to an environment. So it's an authorized hack on the environment. What we do is we analyze the attack surface, whether it's remote computers, external IP addresses. Once we're able to hack, we were able to embed ourselves into the computer system. We can get command and control from remote activity, don't have to be near the site. Then from there, we do electronic handshakes with the environment, and we engage in what's called privilege escalation. This is actually done on one of the businesses. We've done plenty of these. Once we escalate our privileges from a user account to an administrative account, we actually start traversing the environment and doing what's called password stuffing. So we may get passwords for one system, and we utilize those passwords against other systems in the environment. A lot of this is stored credentials. People will use the same passwords in different environments. So if we infiltrate weaker security, we'll use those passwords to hit other systems. Once we own the business, we started going around to different type systems, affecting all different kind of databases and other systems, as well as piggybacking off into other enterprise corporate environments and other either clients or other business relationships that they have within the environment. This is an example of social engineering. Social engineering is essentially the art of manipulation. This is an example of how someone social engineered.
Was living in Denver, Colorado, but under the name of Eric Weiss, because the federal authorities were trying to find me, and I was trying to obviously evade them.
Hey, Matt, would you mind just turning the sound up on your computer so we can hear the video?
From the Microtech ultralight cell phone. And this cell phone is like the iPhone 10 of the 1990s. It was an awesome phone. Since I was a fugitive at the time, I wanted to have a better way to contact people and evade the government's surveillance. If I could actually modify the code in the cell phone where I could change my ESN and mobile identification number from the keypad, where I could actually turn off the ability for the cell sites to control what my device would do, I thought it would be better at evading the government. So I kind of made a stupid and regrettable decision to go after the source code to the firmware that's in the Microtech Ultralight. So the first call I made was to 1-800 directory assistance asking for the number for Motorola. I call that number, a receptionist answers. I go, hi, I'm looking for the project manager of the Microtech Ultralight. So I'm transferred around 2, 3, 5, and by the 8th transfer, I'm now talking to the vice president for all of Motorola Mobility. During my last transfers, I learned that they had a research center in Arlington Heights. So I say, hey, this is Rick over in Arlington Heights. I'm looking for the project manager of the Microtech Ultralight. The VP says, oh, that's Pam. She works for me. Would you like her extension? I call Pam's number, but I get her voicemail that she just left on a 2-week vacation. And if you need any help whatsoever, call Alicia on extension blah, blah, blah. I call Alicia. Hey, Alicia, this is Rick over at Arlington Heights. Did Pam leave on vacation yet? Oh, she has. Well, before she left, she was supposed to send me the source code for the Microtech Ultralight, but she told me if she didn't have time, that you would help me out. So she asked me, what version do you want? And I didn't even know the version number. So I just said, how about the latest and the greatest? It takes her about 5 minutes to return. Rick, I found the source code, but there's a problem. There are hundreds of directories, and within each directory, there are hundreds of files. I asked her, do you know how to use tar and gzip? Because I knew they worked in a Linux environment. No. Would you like to learn? And she said, yes. So I became her instructor. And after the lesson, we had a 5 megabyte file of the source code to the Microtech Ultralight. So the next question was, do you know how to use FTP? Oh, you mean file transfer protocol? I go, exactly. So I gave her an IP address of an anonymous FTP server in Denver. I said, here, try to connect to this IP address using FTP. She tries making a connection and it times out. Can't connect. And then she goes, Rick, I'm going to talk to my security manager about what you're asking me to do. I'll be right back. I go, no, wait. Because the last person I want her to speak to is her security manager. I'm on hold. I'm getting a little bit nervous because it's taking a long time for her to return to the call. And I'm thinking the security is going to hook up a tape recorder, and that's going to be Exhibit A in a future court case against me. She finally returns, Rick. I don't really wanted to talk much because I was worried I was being recorded. I go, that IP address you gave us is outside of Motorola's campus. And I go, I was extremely disappointed. I'm about to hit the end on the cell phone call. And I said, well, thanks anyway. And she goes, wait, I have some great news. What? My security manager gave me his personal username and password to the proxy server so I could upload the file. Once I have a source code, I analyze it to understand how it worked. Looking at the security features, I thought it was too easy and not really challenging. So I decided to do another attack where I actually gained access to their network and was able to breach their workstations, which had all the versions of their source code. It was kind of an accomplishment. Did I give it to anybody else or try to profit in any way? No. It was really, I got it, it was done, and then it was on to the next. So in 1992, I was living in Denver.
So in terms of social engineering, I can tell you that there's plenty of places that we got into, gain access to systems and resources simply by either coming in with a business suit or coming in with a clipboard, and people will allow you into the environment. And even on the phone, usually when people have high pressure, they will usually facilitate what's needed and provide you information that's needed in order to be helpful. So let's discuss incident response real quick. Incident response and forensics. I mentioned about a lot of the different type of stuff that we're getting in through the door to analyze. This is an example of a mobile device that we received literally shredded in pieces. They contain massive amount of information. Mobile devices, they probably contain more information about us than we even know about ourselves. And we were able to do 100% data recovery on these devices. This is called what we call a bake-off, where we basically bake the chip directly off of the device. We extract the chip and we remove the data off of the chip. We're doing a lot of other type of forensics, including vehicle forensics, printers, wire vehicles. I want you to think of computers very differently. Modern computers today are vehicles. Literally, they're vehicles. They have hard drives in them. We're able to extract information. You may sync your phone to it. There's GPS type information. Some of these devices are remotely updated as well. The printer, quickly go over the printer. Good story on this. We purchased a printer prior to being with them that was legitimately purchased and resold. We took the hard drive out, analyzed the hard drive on the printer, and it contained information related to the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. We reached out to the third-party vendor who it belonged to, the CEO. The reply that we just got back, and the reply that we got back at the time in the email was, "Thank you, we're not interested," even though it contained confidential information. So be mindful that these devices, when you put them in your environment, that they're critical. I've also, as an authorized hack, was see if I could hack the LAPD, was able to hack the LAPD through their JetDirect printers that were leaking through the environment. Insider threats, IT staff, we had one with a hedge fund company where we identified that for a hedge fund company, an IT staff put a keylogger in and also set up remote viewing to a competitor type of environment. So this is an example of a keylogger that logs all the different keystrokes that you put in. So this individual, we identified and caught this individual selling the hedge fund algorithms to a third party. So next generation cyber attacks, IoT-based devices. Let's connect everything to the internet, whether it's pacemakers, insulin pumps, airplanes, yes, airplanes, nuclear centrifuges. All of these are susceptible, including vehicles. Vehicles is an example of code gone bad, where literally the AI didn't really work out too well and cause injury and death. So let's talk about pacemaker attacks. Is it possible actually to cause death? There's a quick video. I'm going to skip over it. Basically, it's a Homeland video where an individual remotely attacks somebody because they are wearing a pacemaker. I'm not going to go through it in the interest of time, but is it possible? Is it just theory? I'm going to move to the next one. Absolutely possible. As I mentioned, former U.S. Secret Service agent. My father also has a pacemaker. A lot of these are remotely controlled. Dick Cheney's was disabled. I don't have to tell you how vicious social media is. And the interesting thing is what we found is the amount of people researching the ways to tamper with these devices, including remote access. Fusion insulin pumps, about 40,000 of these were recently recalled because somebody could tamper with the amount of insulin someone gets in the pump through remote administration of the insulin pump. So these devices are at risk as well. Major IoT security incidents that are going on today. We have steel mill hacks, Stuxnet worm that I talked, the Polish tram system, to give you an example. That was hacked by a 14-year-old and derailed 4 vehicles and injuring 12 passengers. Slammer worm hit nuclear power station and disabled the monitoring system for about 2 hours. Okay, let me see. So next, we have dawn of kinetic cyber attacks. Kinetic cyber attacks is the ability to cause direct or indirect physical damage to an environment. It can cause physical objects and processes to the cyber world, offers us capabilities that exponentially exceed the expectations. What that means is we're implementing technology everywhere. We're implementing technology everywhere, but it also increases the threat landscape as well. This is an example of a generator that allows itself to destroy itself. Again, in the interest of time, we're going to move through this, but basically it's a generator that remotely destroys itself, to give an example of the impacts that this can cause. Bricking a device means actually causing physical damage to a device. So just because data may be lost, there's the ability through the firmware of devices, whether they're firmwares or critical database systems, that if you fry the firmware of a device, it's called bricking, it will not come up again. Next generation Death Stars, these are all different devices we discussed. This low orbital ion cannon is a tool that you can download for free and can cause a denial of service attack on an environment. We're going to talk about basically this is an illegal mapping of the internet. This shows the Western world on how dependent we are on technology. We're going to do a quick polling question that we can go through about which country originates the most cyber attacks.
Alrighty, let's get that third polling question up here. Alrighty, which country originates the most cyber attacks? Is it the US, Russia, China, Taiwan, or Turkey? We will get through the polling questions quickly here. All right, I see about 70% people have voted. All right, and we're getting up towards 90% have voted here. All right. Okay, going once, going twice, 3 times, and let's close it. Alrighty, so which country originates the most cyber attacks? So 45% of people said China and 36% of people said Russia. So which is the answer there, Matt?
Yes, the correct answer is China. And again, the trick to this question is which originates the most amount of cyber attacks. I'm going to skip over this. This is basically talking about the if there was a cyber war. This is based on experience in U.S. critical infrastructure and confidential conversation with government industry experts. It would likely be China and Russia. And again, it goes with the sheer volume. Talked a little bit before about the attacks and how they originate. 40% of the world's cyber attacks have their origin in China. United States is next with 10%, followed by Turkey with 4.7%. This is people using basically US systems to piggyback and attack other type systems. So just because the attacking country may be the United States doesn't mean the attack originates there. We have another polling question.
Yes, we do. We'll get to our fourth polling question here. All right. Has artificial intelligence or AI been weaponized for use in orchestrating cyber attacks? Please select one of these. Alexa and AI technologies can never be weaponized. No, AI is closed source code and highly protected technology. Yes, via nation state actors only, or yes, via nation state actors and organized criminals. So has AI been weaponized for use in orchestrating cyber attacks? All right, and once again, these polls are required for CPE credit among the attendees. All right, we got almost 88% of the people have voted here. We're getting up towards 90%. Alrighty, going once, going twice, and we'll close the poll and share those results. So it's pretty substantial here. Has AI been weaponized for use in orchestrating cyber attacks? 86% say yes via nation state actors and organized criminals. Would that be the correct answer there, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. They are being weaponized by state and organized criminals. They're being used to craft emails to bypass filters, firewalls. They're also AI is being integrated into malware to mutate and also to build keys to crack systems. Should you be worried about AI? Well, let's literally look at your infrastructure. If your infrastructure looks anything like this, for those who are non-technical, don't worry about AI. You need to worry about fixing this. If you don't understand the environment, sometimes IT is helpful. This is actually from a security assessment. Sometimes they post it right up there in the back, not just the mappings of the environment, but the core user accounts and passwords. So those of you who are non-technical, go in your back environment. If it looks like this, imagine what your electronic infrastructure looks like. If your passwords look anything like this, it's a good chance your environment is, your accounts are breached. And passwords like this, we're able to literally crack in probably about 10 seconds or less. 30 seconds is usually running a little bit long to crack them. Security controls and assessments. Penetration tests are not enough. Why? They're only looking for external vulnerabilities in the environment. They just look for open ports. You really need stuff that is going to be look at the security control architecture. This is an example of security controls and validation testing. We did an assessment on a multi-billion-dollar company. We looked at 5 businesses in that environment to take a sample. And what we did is look for an authorized hack. The exterior environment, cameras, barbed wire looks very intimidating. All those easily bypassed. 5 out of 5 businesses easily compromised both internally and via external intrusion. We gained everything from signed corporate checks, social security numbers, backups, some of the summary high-level findings. This is an example. Passwords not even changed since 2010. Dormant accounts since 2010. No firewall in one location. I haven't even heard of that. This is an example how we walked in and literally took backups dating back to before year 2000. So no data destruction, no IT retention policies in place. We were able to get into a computer where screens are not even locked. But the interesting thing about this slide is IT knew that these risks are there. They also knew about logic bomb placement as well, and there's a high turnover rate. You have that, there's a big risk to the environment. Firewall findings, what firewalls? Some of them don't have it. I never heard of a verse of firewalls. One guy said he selected that type of firewall just because he said the salesperson was nice. I'm gonna skip past this video. Basically, the hacker slays the firewall. They may look nice, but if they're not configured the correct way, they're gonna get hacked. These are different things that are running in the environment. No one, IT's not even paying attention to it. Remote access controls. And there's an example of stuff that's knowing where your traffic is coming and going. This company didn't do any business in Iran or Iraq, yet you have remote connections and sessions coming through that. Government challenges, I can tell you government's overwhelmed. You see them getting hit by ransomware attacks. So if you think government's gonna come and run to the rescue, often that's not the case. This is a person's resume that we identified in a major global institution. He's the godfather of carding. He tried to recruit himself into the environment. A lot of people are running to cyber insurance. If you think the insurers like to pay out claims, I can tell you that's the opposite. They don't. We've worked on claims such as $2 billion where they're at risk. The insurer only paid out less than 40 million. So insurers very happy with us, not very happy with, the other side is not very happy with us. Adopt a security control framework. There's many of them. NIST is free, but there needs to be a strategy in place as well as a plan. Know your data, understand data risk and obligations. Again, it's about these 3 things: critical, important for your environment. Don't stop tomorrow's attacks. Don't stop tomorrow's attacks based on yesterday's impacts. You need next generation defenses. Trust but verify your environment. Objective security assessments and accountability. Again, Yoda fan, but we'll skip through this. You guys have the deck on that. Again, this is all stuff that can be done. You can prevent these type of hacks. It's not, hey, we're going to get hacked anyway, and you throw your arms up. A lot of these things are preventable. These are different inner and outer perimeter findings. Again, 5 terabytes of data equates to 375 million pages printed on a piece of paper. And I think we have our last polling question on this before we finish up.
Okay, great, Matt. Firstly, thank you to all of the attendees who came today. I know we're running a touch over here. Matt's got a ton of awesome information, so we appreciate you sticking with us here. Let's launch that final poll question. It's a true or false question. So if assets are stolen and the victim company that had their assets stolen file a claim quickly, the feds are required to return stolen assets to the victim company. Is that true or is that false? We're going to give people a couple of seconds here to answer the final poll question. Alrighty, we have about 86% have voted, so we're going to get a couple more seconds here. Alrighty. All right, we're gonna finish up here in about 3, 2, 1. We're gonna close and we'll share with everybody. Most people said, 90% said that is false, and I'm guessing that that's the correct answer there. Matt?
Absolutely, that is the correct answer. Again, former federal agent, really quick story. We had a bank that basically allowed a person who's committing identity theft to purchase houses that he was renting out. The agent told the bank that these houses were acquired through identity theft. The bank wasn't doing anything because the guy was actually paying the mortgage on a monthly basis. Right away, I told the agent, I said, seize the assets, and those assets were seized. The bank quickly tried to recover those assets. They failed. We've seen this happen in other data breaches as well. So if you're negligent and reckless with the environment, you may not get your assets recovered by the federal government. Thank you. This is our information, or if there's any questions, apologies for running a little bit over, but thanks again.
All right, Matthew, thank you so much for your terrific presentation today. I know it was chock full of information, and if anybody wishes to speak to Matthew or Andrea, their information, like he said, is right there below. A little bit of information here for everybody that could see my screen. I want to thank you for joining us today. We do a ton of expert webinar series webinars, and the next one will be taking place at the end of October, October 24th at 3 p.m. Kimberly Ellison-Taylor, who is the immediate past chairperson of the AICPA, will be talking about leading people in the age of machines. And if anybody has ever heard Kimberly speak, she is a dynamic speaker and one of the industry leaders among public accountants, and we are thrilled to have her back this year for the webinar. And if you want to sign up for all of the webinars that are going to be taking place all the way through December, you can sign up for all these years' webinars at 2019webinars.com. We want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we wish you a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Take care.